This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of the DocNJock Wrestling Podcast. This is episode 151. In today's episode, we're going to talk about who is beat up coming out of NXT TakeOver this past weekend and what's going on with Renee Young. And EC3 might be popping up at your local wrestling establishment. Of course, we're going to be taking a look at the biggest topics and trends in wrestling, and doing it with me, as always, he is the one. He is the only. He is the Doc, John Macaroon. What's up, cuz?
Oh, I look forward to this week's broadcast. A major development finally on Raw that was interesting. I can't wait to talk to you about it. So much good stuff on SmackDown, Raw. This week was pretty good. On top of that, you believe it? Chris Jericho is celebrating a major anniversary that he celebrated this past week in terms of how long that dude has been committed to professional wrestling. We're going to break it all down. I can't wait. It was a fun week of wrestling. I thought that it was really good. Not too many really awful spots. I thought that the shows were a little bit advancing storylines all the way across from the things that I saw. So I actually pretty much enjoyed a lot of things that happened this week in wrestling.
Yeah, and I'll agree with you on that. And the one thing I can say is, starting with SmackDown, the continued development of Roman Reigns into this new heel character that he has probably been some of the best work WWE has given us in recent memory. This is a guy who I think tugs on all of the heartstrings, and he plays on your emotions. And by looping in the Uso brothers, I think it takes it to a whole nother level. Roman Reigns was a guy who everybody wanted to turn heel, and it seemed like he was going to go the John Cena route where, I'm not going to do that. And then WWE has finally given it to us, and it has been outstanding. I hope that they can continue to build this character. I hope that they can continue to build him a faction. And again, this is something we kind of were spitballing a little bit last week. And I think what's going to end up happening is the Uso brothers are going to end up joining Roman Reigns, and they're going to basically be his backup. So you've got Roman Reigns, who basically called out Jey Uso again and say, hey, look, I'll give you another title shot, but I'm going to beat you within an inch of your life this next time at Hell in a Cell. So it's going to be interesting to see how this kind of builds and how this falls out. I don't think Jey Uso has a shot against Roman Reigns. Like, it just doesn't make sense right now. Not when you're building this character and he's as high as he is right now. But I like where we're headed, and I like the direction that they're going with Roman Reigns. He's ruthless. He's bloodthirsty. He will do whatever he has to do. He will sacrifice his cousins if he has to get the job done, and I love it. I think it's fantastic.
See, with Roman, it's interesting in that, yes, this is productive. This is the best way to use them. But in my mind, it led me to kind of think to myself, what's the role now of the modern heel? In the past, it was kind of that blend where Stone Cold was a bad guy but then turned good because people loved that badass persona. And then you've seen Brock Lesnar, who just kind of was a guy that naturally was booed because of Paul Heyman. And so now then you look at the two big heels now in the big promotions, Baron Corbin and MJF. It's like, okay, the role of the heel is to be hated. Do I really hate Roman Reigns? Not really. I mean, you know why? Because we spent years already hating him when he was, using that this is my yard situation, when he was just being himself, going out and having success. And now he's in a position where he's being a little bit more forceful. This is my situation. So the thing, yes, I absolutely love it. But the thing is that there has to be something more that takes him to the next level as a heel, whether it be something we've seen before but done differently or something unique. I think he's got to put his own edge on this heel character. And yeah, maybe it's a faction, maybe it's a domination type thing of just going through a bunch of people, but we've seen that before. So for me, I'm just, going to be brainstorming the next couple of weeks to just wonder, what kind of heel should Roman Reigns be to take it to an extra level, to get that extra heat? Would WWE be willing to try new things, to test some boundaries, in regards to maybe gender, power, with Triple H, with Stephanie, with rules and boundaries, with Vince even. I think this might be an opportunity even to bring back Vince in some capacity and have Roman do something with him, with age or with something, or even possibly for a little stint, bring back Vince as part of this new unit. And Vince, could you imagine Roman Reigns comes down to the ring with Vince and Paul Heyman? And it would be something different, or it could be just something along the lines of, blurring the lines of reality, meaning that you start taking shots at AEW and you start doing some things like that to get some extra heat, where you don't just bring heat on the wrestlers, you bring heat on the industry, where you're like, look, I'm part of this, and this is where I belong. I'm here because I don't go and wrestle at second-rate places. And you start doing some things that maybe add extra heat, maybe outside of the Performance Center when the whole COVID thing. So that's where I need to see, because, bro, we've watched wrestling for 30 years. We've damn near seen it all, with the NWO, with bad guy, good guy being blurred, with nasty heels you hate, with the cocky young guy. Something has to be fresh with this heel that for Roman Reigns to take it to the next level, because we've already hated Roman Reigns. Of course, it was when WWE wanted him to be good, but now this incarnation, I think you're right. They're doing a great job. I'm just looking for the next level.
So Doc wants it ratcheted up just a little bit.
5%. You got to make him unique. Roman, has been with the Shield, been with the faction. He's done the faction thing. He's done the I'm the biggest, baddest mofo deal. And we've seen that before. I think something has to be included to make it unique, because I think if you do it right, you strike that match, you could have the baddest heel of all time, above MJF, above Baron Corbin, above the baddest heels that the world of wrestling has ever seen. And I think you could achieve that with this guy, but you got to find it. You got to be creative, because basically you've seen it, cause WWE's ratings have been on a downward trend, and a lot of it is because of the fact it's played out. Everybody's seen everything over and over. There really aren't many major debuts that we like, not a lot of newness, freshness, and a lot of people that WWE fans support aren't getting the pushes. So you got to do something that's going to make everybody go, oh, I missed Raw, or I missed SmackDown. I can't believe I did not see what Roman did or said, or I can't believe that happened, or he aligned with da-da-da. So, like I said, if you want to take it to the next level, I would pair up John Cena with Roman Reigns. Boom. John Cena short term comes in one of those kind of NWO situations. He finally turns heel and aligns with Roman. You got those two doing business. You got to do something crazy, like someone that hasn't been a bad guy forever, or something that's just so unusual that gets everybody's attention. That's what WWE needs right now. They need a jolt, because the COVID era has struggled.
What do you think about this? And this is a direction I think they might end up going, especially for WrestleMania. So you've heard The Rock speculating about coming back and wrestling Roman Reigns. So Roman is now champion all the way through till WrestleMania, and he's basically made both of his cousins submit, and they're basically under his power now, and whatever his will is, they do. So The Rock comes in, and The Rock is going to challenge him, and The Rock is going to try to change him, make him be a good guy again, and try to convince him. And then this leads to them feuding and them getting into a fight. And in the end of it all, The Rock submits and says, you're the tribal chief, because that's the direction apparently we're going, is this whole tribal chief thing. What do you think about that? So Roman Reigns ends up beating arguably the most electrifying superstar ever in WWE, and it kind of gives Roman that little bit of a rub and that push. What do you think about that?
Now we just expand it further. Rock.
Now you add The Rock to the group?
Yeah, no. Rock takes on Roman Reigns. Rock is getting close to the edge, and he's going to win. All of a sudden, John Cena comes out to help out, or what people believe is going to help out The Rock to take on this big bad dude who's been knocking down the company. All of a sudden, boom, you get the special treatment that everyone gets, the swerve, where John Cena turns on The Rock. And then you tidy up that storyline from 10 years ago. And then, boom, now you got John Cena and Roman Reigns aligned. You make John Cena a bad guy, and you got stories for 2 years. The Rock wants retribution. John Cena's a bad guy. What's he going to do? And John Cena starts to do the bidding for Roman Reigns, where he clears the path. Super advocate, somebody that also can do the talking, but at the same time can, deals, can also handle business in the ring, tag team, Cena Reigns tag team action. There's a lot of ways you could incorporate Cena and The Rock if you're going to use them.
There's a ton, but the problem is you got to get both these guys to want to come back and wrestle, and they're going to have to wrestle. I mean, maybe not 50% of the time, but they're going to have to put some time in. And I don't know if those guys have the schedule.
No. The Rock and Cena just once a month, 12 appearances, just once a month, where they show up at pay-per-views or advocates, or they do something or whatever. Once or twice a month. Cena doesn't even have to wrestle. You got to find the role. That what's he going to play for Roman Reigns? Is he going to be his business advocate? Is he going to be, somebody, you know what? He can even be like on the path of like, I'm going to buy WWE, something crazy like that. Like, hey, Roman, look, you're beyond this. You're beyond just a performer. You start bringing in, like, hey, let's make a union. Let's buy this place. And then you go on a path of looking for Vince, doing some stuff, just being in charge, something like that, something crazy, something interesting, something unique, or along the lines of John Cena paves the way and starts settling disputes with people like AJ Styles, or just John Cena is on this revenge tour of people that beat him, that he just every single loss that has been recorded that he's had over the 5 years, you start getting, it's not overt. Like every single loss that Cena has, all of a sudden you start seeing Reigns there to take care of business. That's something there to, you just have to do something shocking. The only thing really shocking left is either CM Punk or Cena heel. You got to play the card. It's time. You got to play one of those cards. And it's got to be shocking. So in my mind, it's one of those things, because really, if you think about it, cuz we've seen every kind of heel. The badass heel, the so-so heel, the heel that you want to hate. There's nothing right now that makes heels really, really different other than they've never been one before. So we gotta get some uniqueness and handle business.
Yeah, I agree with you. We've seen just about everything, so you have to do something a little bit different. You got to strike a different chord. So I don't like the direction you're heading. Now, with SmackDown tonight, we do have the draft kicking off. So I'm going to throw a curveball at you, and I'm going to go a little bit off of our rundown here. Who do you see moving places? Because I can see Braun Strowman going to Raw. I can see The Fiend going to Raw. I could see Morrison going to SmackDown. I could see Morrison going actually to Raw, and I could see Andrade possibly going to SmackDown, Charlotte possibly going to SmackDown. So who do you see going where? Just like early speculation, because this is going to play out over the next couple days.
Yeah. Obviously, I think Raw needs a major shakeup. Maybe you switch over Roman Reigns to Raw. Maybe the Usos as well. The big storyline, move it over to Monday. Maybe I think... probably I would just do a switch of the big cats. Drew McIntyre and Randy Orton, move them over to SmackDown. The Universal title, move it over to Monday Night Raw and see what happens. So, or the WWE title, whoever's which. So, sorry, it's been a minute. The Universal Champion was on SmackDown, right? And then
yes.
And then Drew McIntyre is a WWE Champion?
Correct.
Okay, so they just do a switch, and you just move over, switch them around. I think just a nice, healthy switcheroo with the top cats would do it for me. I'm interested in some of those mid-card guys that have been utilized, so maybe the big thing is I think Miz should be utilized on Raw. It's just a great spot to feature him. He's 40 years old, next 2 years. Let him stay on Raw, better than on SmackDown at this point in time, and it elevates it a little bit. You can kick off some feuds. So those are the kind of the ones I'm thinking of off the top of my head.
I like it. Let's transition into Raw. And I think on Raw, what they did was they tried to salvage Retribution. The last couple weeks, everything with Retribution has been completely negative. People in the back have been panning it and laughing at it. The superstars back there can't get behind it. So something that we have thrown around, something that we've talked about, is we expected it to be Mustafa Ali as the leader of this group. It was either him or it was CM Punk. Those were the two guys that we kind of threw out and tried to see if they would stick. Now, fast forward to Monday night, you've got Mustafa Ali getting beat up by the Hurt Business, and Retribution comes out, and all of a sudden it seems like Mustafa Ali is going to side with the Hurt Business to take on Retribution. And what you end up getting is Mustafa Ali unveiling himself as the leader of Retribution. So can Mustafa Ali save Retribution, a faction that has been debuted, and basically it was a complete and utter dumpster fire? Can you get behind a Mustafa Ali-led Retribution?
Absolutely. It was great. It was shocking. It made sense. You also can tie in the hacker situation and tie that up a little bit. I thought it was great to feature them. And maybe it was the long-term plan to do this, or maybe if they just realized, shoot, it wasn't our plan, but now we're just going to do it. Why not? I thought it was well orchestrated, and at least it brought some interest and at least some positivity, because by and large, most people liked it.
Yeah, I thought it was great. And I think you're right. What you can do is you now, as WWE, you have the ability to kind of retcon some things and to kind of fix a few things. So you had the hacker storyline that you just abruptly dropped. You had the Retribution storyline, which was poor. And you now have Mustafa Ali, who you can tie all this up with. Remember, Mustafa Ali was the guy who was in line to get a WWE Championship match because he came out so hot. And Vince got behind him. He ended up getting injured. That ended up going to Kofi Kingston, and that's what started Kofi Kingston's run before Brock Lesnar took the belt off of him. So I think what you can do here is you can tie all these things together and pinpoint it right back to him getting hurt by Randy Orton and him never getting his just dues to get his title shot. And you can have this all packaged with Retribution as his background, as his backup. And I think this is a good way to kind of build this storyline. I think this is probably one of the best moves WWE has done, especially with this Retribution storyline, which really seemed like it was going nowhere. Yeah. Now, Buddy Murphy and Seth Rollins, they have appeared to have disintegrated. This is no longer a group. Do you like Buddy Murphy going up against Seth Rollins? And do you think Buddy Murphy can flourish without Seth Rollins?
Absolutely. I think that this is an opportunity for Buddy Murphy to get into a feud, get the rub, eventually lose. But I think you need to kind of start the process of building this character and getting people more invested. And what better way than to have, the rub off of Seth Rollins, have a nice series of matches. And, Seth has been ruthless. I thought that the intrigue with the Mysterio family has been good. I've liked the storyline all the way around.
Yeah, I think this is a great chance for Buddy Murphy to really be able to spread his wings, really be able to do a little bit more. Him with Seth Rollins was great. He got the rub from Seth, and now him breaking away, I think really establishes him as one of these upper mid-tier card guys and possibly a guy who you could see in the main event. Now, we both agree Buddy Murphy has great work in the ring. We both agree Buddy Murphy is fantastic to watch. Now this is his chance to really kind of put his emphasis and put his mark on Monday Night Raw. I think this is fantastic for him. Now, you took in Impact. What did you like about Impact this week?
Yeah, I thought Impact was really a solid show. I thought that you've had opportunities now to advance storylines ahead of Bound for Glory. Overall, what you're seeing in regards to Impact is a show that's kind of now laying out the foundation of the storylines. So I thought that the Tommy Dreamer match, the rematch, was really good. It's interesting the way that they've been using Tommy Dreamer. Sometimes the forgotten guy. He's kind of like the glue guy, a wrestler that has been, around and things like that. So I thought that overall, I think it was Victory Road was a decent pay-per-view. And now the Impact was trying to build upon that. And I just thought that the show was, pretty good all the way around. I think that something that they do that I think other companies don't have the opportunity to do is just kind of tell stories in and out and kind of resolve them just at the right time. Other companies tend to sometimes maybe tell stories way too long, and I think that Impact has been doing a good job with the tag team, with the women. Not too many mistakes either. I think that sometimes in wrestling companies there are too many mistakes and too many things that don't, make sense, where with Impact, a lot of their stories that are being told are making a lot of sense. And it's interesting, too, which is I didn't think that I would grow to be somebody that would kind of be attached to Impact, but I've kind of liked it just a tad bit more than Monday Night Raw. The Tommy Dreamer Brian Myers match, again, was just really excellent. Dreamer defeated Myers by disqualification. You had the defeat, the Rohit Challenge. I thought that was excellent. Grace defeated Raju in a non-title match. The Rascals took on XXXL. The Rascals got the victory. The other major thing that they've portrayed, which is, I think I like, is the Rich Swann situation and his entire journey for Bound for Glory has been told amazing. Eric Young and Rich Swann have been going at it, and the lengths that Eric Young is going to make Swann's life a nightmare has made the story really cool. And so that buildup has been solid for a pay-per-view. And that's what you want to do, is build up like the intensity and the feud and things like that. So that was unbelievably awesome. There weren't too many things that I didn't like. I think online, the biggest thing that kind of drew the ire of the online world via Twitter, from what I see, is the Deaners versus Johnny Swinger and Crazy Steve. I think that it just, for whatever reason, that matchup just didn't really hit with people. People hated it, and the Deaners ended up defeating Swinger and Crazy Steve, but people absolutely loved Johnny Swinger. The match itself, I don't know how to describe it. It was chaotic, it was bad, and I understand why people panned it. Sometimes, for whatever reason, a matchup is put together and it just falls flat. Maybe chemistry or bad timing or whatever's going on. It just was absolutely terrible. And then the ongoing death of the TNA World title with EC3 has been awesome. So, good show. I rated it solid B, continuing in a line of good Impact Wrestling shows. I just think that the tough part with any real wrestling show is you can't have moments that are like disastrous. You got to have like, okay, if it's bad, it's got to be like a C. It can't be an F. And at least now in the last 3 reviews, whether it's been some of the women that haven't been highlighted, the overall shows have been good, but there's always been that one moment that just makes everybody go, oh, what the hell is that? And if you build up too many of those, you might lose some of the audience that's casual. And I think for Impact to grow, you got to just scrub some of those things that you think maybe, if this isn't going to be guaranteed to be at least a C, scrub it. AEW has Dark. You got to figure out a way to tighten up, I guess to say, because, like we would say, you're only as good as the bottom of the card. And the bottom of the card the last 3 weeks has been Fs.
Not been good at all. But I think the thing Impact does give you is gives you something a little bit different. And I think week to week, they do a pretty good job giving you, especially their top end quality, their top end wrestlers are pretty damn good and pretty damn entertaining. But it's like you said, it's that bottom of the card that they kind of got to shore up a little bit. Now, NXT follows up off of NXT TakeOver, which took place this past weekend. And this week on NXT, you ended up getting a couple of returns. First off, we had Dexter Lumis come back, and this was a guy who I was huge on a couple of weeks ago, maybe 3 months ago, before he ended up going out with a really bad ankle injury. So Dexter Lumis comes back. He looks incredible as he takes on Austin Theory. We also opened the show with Ember Moon, and Ember Moon has been sidelined forever and a day after taking place in one of the 24/7 challenges where she was chasing R-Truth around. She ended up blowing out her Achilles tendon. So she is now making her return to the ring after a very serious, substantial injury. I want to know what you thought about Ember Moon's return to NXT. Because remember, she was up in WWE. She was on Monday Night Raw. They weren't really using her. They threw her into this little gimmick bit for the 24/7 championship. She ends up getting hurt, and she ends up getting sidelined for quite some time. She's now back, and she's back in NXT, which I think might be the perfect spot for her. Almost like Finn Balor, where you've got these superstars that go back down to NXT, or they just go back to NXT. I think Ember Moon is probably best suited right now, at least for NXT. And she ends up coming in saying, hey, this is Ember's Law. I'm going to do things my way. What did you think about her return?
I thought that the way in which it was done was unbelievable. You were surprised. It was good. But unfortunately, here's the problem. I can't stop feeling like it's a step back. And that's why NXT as a developmental brand has a lot of pros, like 90% good, great developmental, a lot of attention. Here's the problem, though. When you take somebody like an Ember Moon and send her back, it doesn't feel big time anymore. It feels like, oh, no, they realized it was a failure and they needed more star power. And it feels like somebody that was called up to the big time and now has gone back to the minors. And you feel bad because that kind of has been the fate of Fandango and Tyler Breeze. They get the call up and then they go back, and it's like you hear about them, but they're not doing things major. And that's the problem with NXT, is that I would, if you're Triple H, I would kind of cease the operation of sending people down. You just got to create the new star and roll with it, because Ember Moon, great, she's a star. People want to watch her. But unfortunately, you're taking the spot of the next person that could be developmental. I would have invested more to put Ember Moon back on the main roster, dude. She's awesome. So, and sometimes maybe in those moments, the wrestlers are like, look, just put me on. I know I'll get 800,000 people watching. I can build my brand so that I can come back even hotter and maybe even make some demands. But you just can't shake the notion and idea that it's a step down. That's just what I wrote. I wrote big letters, step down.
Do you think that that's more Ember Moon? Because like when Finn Balor goes back to NXT and he has a huge match this past weekend, I don't know. I don't really feel like it's a step back. And I get what you're saying, because I think Ember's Moon, her big problem is she struggles to connect with the audience, because I was excited that she came back. I was excited to see her, but watching her promo, I was like, this is boring.
Yeah, it is Ember Moon too, but Finn Balor's different. He was in the stratosphere of a Universal Champion. He was over worldwide. That's a different cat. He's an outlier. You could put him on main event and people would watch it. So he's an outlier, and he's willing to, obviously take that show to a next level and make it a challenge and make it part of something that's great for him. Ember Moon, yeah, absolutely. She's not I actually have more confidence that if you push her on the main roster, she was interesting, unique, and things like that. On NXT, it's just an afterthought.
Yeah, it's weird, because she's somebody who can do a ton of things in the ring. She seems like she's a very sweet girl, very nice. She seems like a girl that if you changed her character a little bit, gave her a little bit of an attitude, she could rock an attitude as well. It just, for some reason, it seems to fall a little bit flat, I think, with the audience. Now, AEW, they celebrated Chris Jericho in his 30 years of being in the wrestling industry. Now, I don't know about you, but when this first started and the show opened, I was like, so how are we going to celebrate Chris Jericho in his 30 years? Because he's only been in AEW now for what, 2? So like, you can't go and you can't pull WWE footage. You can't go pull WCW footage. You can't go pull ECW footage. You can maybe go pull some of the indie Canadian footage, but I don't know how we're going to celebrate this with any type of highlights. So they don't give us any highlights of Chris Jericho. If they do, it's everything that's taking place in AEW, which I'm fine with. I understand. What you end up getting, though, is you get Chris Jericho tagging in the main event at the end of the night. And leading up to that, as you go into your commercial spots, you have a lot of 1980s rockers and a lot of old wrestlers wishing him well as his dad, which I thought was great.
Yes.
But so this is the one thing I said out loud. Watching this, I was like, man, do those 1980s rockers all look the same and look like 1980s rockers?
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
right?
Vintage. It was crazy, dude.
Vintage. It was cool to see Luther, because it brought back some history with Japan. So that was cool to have a match and things like that. And at the end was cool. Look, Chris Jericho is a wrestling treasure. To celebrate 30 years and to at least have the opportunity now to hear on some of his interviews that without AEW, he probably wouldn't be around. So this has kind of been an extension of his career, a nice extension, but it maybe starts to lend to when you hit 30 years, maybe these could be the last 12 months of him being active, and you got to find 2 or 3 more people for him to put over. But I think he's a major treasure, and he'll always be around. If AEW's around, what better personality as an announcer, manager, valet, on-screen act? The guy's money. So I think his in-ring career is winding down. You can see he's slowed down a little bit. That's why he's doing some tag team stuff to extend it out this last year. He accomplished what he needed to do. Name brand guy. He got 3 things over in AEW with Le Champion, Demo God, the songs. He's already over. Inner Circle's been great. I think he can transition just to be the leader of the Inner Circle. He can even transition to be the next Paul Heyman of Jack Hagar, or he can be the guy, the asshole that everybody hates. Well-deserved. That's all you can say is well-deserved. Kudos. 30 years in wrestling. My God. And he's still doing great stuff. So all in all, AEW was a good show. I'm curious what you thought. I think the big thing that we saw was a hellacious dog collar match between Cody and Brodie Lee. And wow, it was more vicious than maybe even what I thought. And I did not expect that. I didn't expect that kind of match, and I definitely didn't expect Cody to win the title back. For me, I might have kept it on Brodie longer to raise his legend. But what do you think? Cody got the belt back.
I thought it was a little bit premature to take the belt off of Brodie Lee. Yeah. So unless Brodie Lee is dealing with some injury that we're unaware of or he needs some time away, I thought it was a little bit too soon. I felt like you could have taken this match because this was a vicious match. It was bloody. It was gory. I felt like you could have taken this match to a no contest. Give these both these guys a couple of weeks to recuperate. You could come back. Brodie Lee could take somebody else out, and you could build this to a pay-per-view. Maybe at that time have Cody win the belt back. But I just felt like this was just too soon. I mean, Cody was a guy who won this belt and had this belt for quite a few months. And then Brodie Lee has it, and he only has it for 5 weeks, 6 weeks.
Right, it needs to be longer.
It just didn't seem to do a whole lot. And the thing about it is, you have the casual viewer watching this, and Brodie Lee has a presence about him. He is a little bit scary. He is a little bit off-putting, and he just won this a couple of weeks ago. It doesn't necessarily make sense to devalue him and take the belt off of him. Now, look, he lost it in a brutal match to Cody Rhodes, and I don't think there's any shame there. I don't think it's going to take any steam off of him. But for the casual viewer, I think it might knock him down a peg, and I don't think this was the time to do it.
Absolutely.
I didn't think it was right.
You're absolutely spot on. Good AEW show, a lot of good angles, lots of fun things as we approach, the next pay-per-view and things like that. Storylines are building, and AEW is celebrating now their 1-year anniversary. Fans are steadily coming back. They got they won the Wednesday night battle, and they're handling their business pretty handily week after week. All right, cuz, hit me with this week's professional wrestling news and notes. What caught your attention?
So I'm not sure if you noticed, but during the Chris Jericho soliloquy going to the breaks, Hiroshi Tanahashi was in one of those. Hiroshi Tanahashi, obviously part of New Japan, a very large part of New Japan. And the thought process is there are some changes going on in New Japan right now. And what we might end up getting, and the way that Tony Khan has structured the AEW contracts, he structured them so the guys in AEW can go work in New Japan if they choose to. The thought process is we might get some crossover and we might get a partnership with AEW and New Japan, seeing how things are changing a little bit over on New Japan's side. There was a lot of hurt feelings when a lot of the big-time guys from New Japan went over and started AEW. You've got to remember Kenny Omega. You had the Young Bucks. You had Hangman Page. You had a couple of other guys that came over from New Japan and started AEW. And New Japan had some pretty hurt feelings about all of that. So we might be getting a partnership between AEW and New Japan in the future. Coming out of NXT TakeOver last weekend, Finn Balor is now dealing with a broken jaw in 2 places, while Kyle O'Reilly left the match with a few missing teeth. Both of these guys were beat up, battered, and bruised. This match was supposed to go much longer than what it originally went for. If you go back and you rewatch this match, Finn Balor takes a knee from Kyle O'Reilly. That's what breaks his jaw. Bam! He then continues to wrestle for, I believe it was 20, maybe 30 more minutes. And you could tell there's a part where he goes for the coup de grace at the very end. And he comes down and he lands on Kyle O'Reilly, and he immediately grabs his face because his jaw is getting jarred around. So both of these guys left beaten, battered, really busted up. It's going to take a little bit of time before we see them on TV again. Now, Renee Young, who left WWE back in August, is now going to co-host the pre-show for next week's episode of SmackDown. She'll be co-hosting the show with Booker T as her partner, and it will air a half hour before SmackDown. The special is set to coincide with what they're considering the start of the 2nd season of SmackDown on Fox. It will also be the first episode with the new SmackDown roster with the WWE Draft, again, taking place this week. And EC3 has popped up on ROH in a recent vignette that was dropped to stir the pot. EC3 made an appearance on Ring of Honor Wrestling. Ooh. So very, very interesting happenings in the world of wrestling. That's it for this week's news and notes.
Make sure you follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. If there's something you saw on an indie scene or an angle that we missed, feel free, reach out. We love debating and talking professional wrestling. It's always a good time, man. The world of wrestling is expanding, lots of things to talk about, and we appreciate all the engagement that we get from all the shows and all the downloads and listens and 5-star reviews. We greatly appreciate it. All you got to do to get our daily content at the Detroit Sports Podcast Network is go to your favorite place that podcasts are located and hit that subscribe button when you type in these 3 words, Detroit Sports Podcast. And when you do, boom, our content will find you each and every day. Monday through Sunday, we're uploading great new content, and we appreciate the growth that we've had over these last 7 years. Stay tuned. DocNJock Wrestling Podcast airs every single Friday, breaking down the world of professional wrestling. Thanks, guys. Let's talk next week.
Sounds good, brother. Be good.